Howdy, y'all. I'm Danny, as before mentioned. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Today, I really want to present to you the bridges and cultures of innovative cuisine. I want to give you some insight upon what culinary arts and fusions of foods grants us and the abilities it has to bound cultures. So let's get started, and how do I make this go to the next slide? So first, by a show of hands, who here knows what a fusion food is? Anyone? Yeah, okay. For those who don't, it's basically when you combine two different cultures' cuisines into unique and new, for the most part, taste. And I want to give you a few examples to give you a real idea what I'm talking about. So let's start off with the Korean-American mixture of the rice burger. And so what they typically do here is they take a type of sticky rice, they'll roll the buns, burn either side, and use your preferred meat in between. And it's inspired food from the war era and coming into the present day. Another food I want to talk to you is something that U.S. has been doing with fast food chains, which is the taco pizza from Taco Bell. And if we have any Americans in here, I'm sure we'll be familiar with it. So it serves like a deep dish. It's a marriage between pizza, Italian cuisine. Yeah, I know. It will cause trouble calling it Italian, but it's a marriage between Mexican and Italian. It serves like a deep dish with what you would put it on a pizza, but Mexican style. Another one is this Thai sushi roll, which is fusing between a coconut type of curry dish with your type of sushi, and it will cause rich and savory flavor. It will be pretty delicious. And another is American and French cuisine, which is apple pie creme brulee, which you get the sensation of apple pie along with the richness that you get with creme brulee. So going through all these, we can kind of see how cultures can be brought together when we're combining the foods. But what type of communication does this bring up? What kind of talk between cultures can this cause? I'll give you a little bit about my background first, though. This is my personal experience. So it began with my work at Williams-Sonoma, which was mentioned before. I was a stock boy until I started planning a few events for them. And what I learned from being in the store, it's a high-end cookware store, is that not only is the taste, not only the smell or the food items being combined, but the traditions that are being used to cook are spreading across the world quickly. So like, you go in the store, and when I first started, I saw all these different instruments that I'm not accustomed to, and I have a lot of background with cooking. My dad likes to say that I learned to cook out of survival because my mom didn't prefer it. And so I'm in this store, and I'm learning about all these new devices, and I'm saying, so how do I use this? How do I use this? Annoying my colleagues, and they're sitting me down, showing me. We have a kitchen up in the front where we present the new dishes to customers. And so this gets me thinking, like, why are we using these tools instead of things that are more customary for back home, different from what I'm used to? This spurs me, as I go into my undergrad degree, to start volunteering at food truck festivals, street food festivals, and end up working at this particular food truck, Taqueria El Azteca, which is a mixture between Spanish and Mexican cuisine, which the cultures and their culinary prowess are similar, but they're different enough where the boss would get really mad at me if I was not preparing the things correctly. But this taught me, like, the street food is talking to the ground level. They're talking to the grassroots people and bringing up this type of diplomacy. Be like, hey, here's a piece of my culture that you can experience and fill yourself and probably end up pretty happy. My next experience, still in my college town of Greensboro, was at soup kitchens. And this I did for about 1.5 to 2 years. And from the knowledge that I gained from the food truck festivals in Williams-Sonoma, I was able to take the ingredients and combine them in such a way that it was more of a rich dish, more of a foolhardy dish that excited the taste buds. And what really strange happened is, like, the patrons would come up to me and tell me, I've never had anything like this. I've never tasted, where did you get the idea to make this? And telling them about the different cultures brought out their own stories. And so this is a culture that, the food I'm making isn't my culture. I'm sharing it with these people, and they're telling me their stories. So there's a transition of me presenting other cultures and having people think about it. And my last personal experience is at a Euro-American Southern cuisine restaurant where I worked as a busboy for a while. And it's called Margot's. And here, I got to feel how excited the chefs got to play the part of being a scientist. These were fellow travelers. These were people that have been all over the world cooking in their respective countries and different countries. And they brought it back here, and they taught me, these are how these dishes are prepared. These experiences allowed me to have a really strong insight of how food is used as diplomacy every single day. So you guys might still be saying, what do I know? I eat fusion food all the time. I eat food all the time. So I want to give you the quick background, the 2-second background on how this innovativeness, this mixture of cuisines really began. And we'll start off with the transition from hunter-gatherers to farming. I like to look at this because as we were transitioning out of this to not really knowing what the next meal is, it's in the going out to get your own food and figuring out what works, to people really setting themselves up and going into routine. So from this routine, people began to experiment a little bit more. The higher class people would go out and find these people that are bored with what they're cooking every day. Like a potato can only be a baked potato so many times before it becomes something better. French fries, I love French fries. But the mundane had to go through an experience before the cultures really could be stretched. And this brings me into my next point of the communications that have been going on. Once the travel started of these people who are cooking their own cuisines and for other purposes, arts and so forth, people are sharing in the other's experience. They're learning about one another. They're feeling what the other has. And through this understanding of cultures from the culinary arts, it will allow people to really understand what they can take from different cultures, a mixture of cuisines through communication. And this man is Wolfgang Puck, who really has been coining terms, creating new dishes surrounding fusion foods. And he said that the quickest way to win the hearts and minds of people is through their stomach, and that really resonates with me. After cooking potlucks with friends and sharing dishes with Erasmus students, international students, and seeing like them experience a little bit of my home, even if it is a brief moment, really kind of helps out. So he's here fusing foods and kind of setting a trend for chefs of the future to go ahead and try out their own experiments. And lastly, as I was mentioning before, the food truck and the high-end restaurants that are serving foods to the masses, really expanding on culture and their culinary prowess. And what I like here is this is what's going on right now. Berlin has a series of food truck festivals and street food festivals that you can readily visit. I believe we're heading to something on the 31st to the Turkish market. But people are coming out from their home country and they're presenting to you their culture. They're presenting to you what they know, and they are building on what they know with the country or the culture that they have became within. So let's go into a little more delicacy of diplomacy. So I'm sure these are two familiar figures, Vladimir Putin and then the Prime Minister of Germany, having a meal together. And this is a typical thing. They're talking with one another, they're eating with each other, and they're making agreements. So this is a top-down perspective where people are coming together to eat, but not only that, they're discussing their values and their systems. So not only does food itself serve as a means of communication of the culture, but people eat over the food. They are able to figure out their world problems over these dishes. And whether it be fusion food or the home country with another coming in, this can serve to be really well. And I gotta go back to the grassroots. I can't stress this enough. From the ground up perspective of people coming out to try a new food that they've never heard of on a food truck from the people from that culture who prepare it correctly can really provide like, hey, I wanna know more about you. I wanna become more like you. The Erasmus potlucks are amazing. We've had a few here at the ICD already, and I've had some in my experience with Finland and other cultures and in Korea. And this really allows you to see how international students come together and they want to share what they know. They want to share what they have, and maybe their skills comes from what their mother or father taught them, or in my case, what the internet taught me about Southern cuisine. Last, I want to mention about the science that's going behind it. As we're progressing forward, we might be making some discoveries. We probably are making discoveries of how to enrich taste, how to enrich the process so everyone's able to have not only food, but a decent meal, a delicious meal that they find appealing. And whether it be from their home country or another, this is something that everyone has a right to. And what I want to mention next is, like, it's a marriage of food. And I got a little onion ring here and a little earth to show, like, we're all eating and we should all be sharing what we're eating together. So going into that, let's talk about some of the wonderful things, some of the disastrous possibilities. I'm sure there's a rich cuisine to be had. This is a bulgogi taco that I got to experience in North Carolina and in South Korea. And this was absolutely wonderful, exploded with flavor, mixing Spanish culture and then Korean culture and kind of a barbecue deliciousness. Another is the festivities, the parties, the people that come together to talk over food and enjoy themselves over food. Because once you're full, once you're happy, the communication just flows. And of course, the financial benefits of trying out fusion foods. Because as I mentioned before with the history, the mundane gets boring. People need to try something new. They get excited with something new. So if a little restaurant says, hey, wait a second, I'm going to serve this bulgogi taco. I'm going to serve my own brand of Mexican pizza that's not horrible. Sorry, Taco Bell is not good. But they are able to pull people in with the new excitement, the newness that cuisines can offer. But there are some disastrous possibilities, everyone. Like, you could come out with a monstrosity of a dish, a food monster, something that's utterly disgusting and really undersells your culture, but it serves as a propaganda to your culture. And what if we fused foods too much and we come out with a gray goop, something that everyone says, oh, this is good enough, this is what I want to eat. No, we can't have this happen. It will destroy cultures, and it will destroy what makes our individual selfness good. And of course, the bastardization that fast food chains does to food. We don't want them to take over this fusion idea and make it their own, and then it becomes generic. We want the fusion to be something special that we get to experience upon our own. So going a little bit even further into my own home, I'm going to give you a few more personal examples. So this is called Shabu Shabu. This is located about a mile away from NC State University. It's renowned within North Carolina, and it fuses Thai cuisine with Japanese. They serve pretty cheap prices, and NC State doesn't have such a large study abroad program as other universities in North Carolina. So this allows for people to get a taste of what the outside is, get a understanding that the cultures can fuse, and they can take this this need to make something delicious and maybe do some research and get out of the country themselves to experience. Another is Buku, which really advertises global street food, and they're a more high-end restaurant, but it's persuading people, hey, this is the normal stuff these people eat in this country. It will provide for foreign investment. It will provide a bridge for diplomacy. If they eat something here, maybe they say, oh, this was the most delicious thing I've ever had. I want to go here to experience this. And then they get the full, rich experience of travel in itself. And the last is my favorite. This is Cowfish Grill. It combines American food, like burgers, pizza, and all that, with Japanese. And as you can see here, the sushi burger, where you use both elements of it. And yeah, it may sound horrible at first, but it's actually delicious, and I love it. Okay, now this is my little product to give to all of you. I was in South Korea, and I've cooked fried chicken, so I understand the process of both of these. So I decided to create my own dishes. So kimchi is a South Korean dish. It's a pickled radish, pickled cabbage, and fried chicken I'm sure we're familiar with. The spices of southern fried kimchi would relate to the spices in southern fried chicken. So first, I'll give you a little example how I'm pan frying it, wrapping the kimchi in the dough and making sure it's cooked properly. Present it there to you guys. They look like little chicken nuggets by the end of this process. Me and my friend Chung tried it, and it turned out to be quite delicious. It was a great success. And then my next attempt at fusion foods, which is spaghetti biscuits. So again, Southern cuisine with the biscuits, which isn't like a crumpet or a cookie. American biscuits, yes, just like American football. And it's a rich, fluffy, buttery kind of bread that is more savory than sweet. And spaghetti, I'm sure we're all familiar with. So I work on it. This is what the product when it gets out. It's not too pretty at this point. So yeah, I'm happy. I succeed in cooking this wonderful dish. Me and Jung, again, she was helping me the entire day. She helps me cook the dish. And you know, that first bite's it's rough. So I try to add some pasta sauce because spaghetti and pasta sauce goes really well together. And this was an utter failure. I would not recommend trying the spaghetti biscuit. And last, this came from my time in Finland. This is grits and mammi. So grits are here up on the right and mammi is on the left. Mammi is a rye pudding that you usually mix with cream. And grits is a buttery porridge-like thing that's more salty and savory than what you normally have with porridge, which you want to be sweet. And I'll spare you guys the monstrosity that came out when I attempted this dish. It was not pretty and it did not taste good. But what should I be giving you here all today? Like what is the thing that you should take after hearing me talk about these fusion foods? It's go out, experiment with your own culture's cuisine, experiment with what's like around you. See if you can create your own cuisine, try out the global street markets, and it should be a call to travel to really feel how other people are eating and what is their typical norm here. But more than that, like, be happy and just eat. And thank you all for fusing.
I'm sure we have questions from the audience.
Thank you, Danny, for the wonderful presentation. Just to confirm how food is important for cultural diplomacy, for people to know each other, reduce the stereotypes and everything. We have a way to say in Arabic, we say, like if you want to tell that I know this person a lot, you say, we share bread and salt with this person. So I just wanted to say yes, and actually it's even in the intangible heritage of stories of the nations. So yeah, thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Daniel. That's great, very interesting. And here in Europe, I think we have the same saying: if you would like to know someone, you really have to eat with her or him a lot of salt, mainly salt.
Actually, I'm pretty curious about the procedure you have done for the spaghetti biscuits, you know. Because I didn't see, I mean, for that mix, which actually is very, very interesting. But all the food, actually, because it's, I think it's a matter of fantasy. And the approach you have about, it's an artistic way in one hand, and in another hand, it's a way to bridge culture. So congratulations for that. But really, I couldn't see actually biscuit or spaghetti in that. Could you please tell me how you did it?
Well, the way I normally make biscuits, like, are you asking for a recipe here, or are you asking for like me tossing up spaghetti in the air and getting covered in?
For the recipe, yes.
Oh, the
yes.
recipe.
I might try one.
Okay, but if you can do better, send me a picture first off. So it's flour, like boil the spaghetti first, flour, drain the water off, let it dry for a little bit. Cover in flour. I use yogurt instead of milk and baking powder, and then mold it.
Okay, so you started with, you boiled first the spaghetti, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take note.
I did not make it from scratch.
Congratulations anyway,
yeah.
Really, good job.
Yeah. I have something for the workshop. If you were able to sign up, there might be spaces left that are more interesting than the fusion foods. Yeah.
Thank you, Danny, for your nice presentation. I would like to ask you about your experience to making fusion food. Your experience about the taste, disaster taste that you taste and think, what the shit I make. Do you have some experience like this?
Well, tasting the fusion food or creating it myself?
You make a food, fusion food, and you taste it and say, what the hell I make it? Like this one?
Constantly. Constantly, man. Coming from a wide background a little bit, like my parents and my grandparents all make their own kind of cuisine, so I'm on my father's side it's typically German and Russian dishes, while on my mother's side it was Scandinavian English dishes. So when all of this is coming together, I'm like, hey, could any of this work together? You know, most of the times no, but I came up with some really interesting stuff. Like instead of the typical recipe for a beef stroganoff, I was able to combine it with a little bit more soury stuff that I picked up from Korea. And I can't remember the correct dish name, but it's a sour cold noodle dish. And that with beef stroganoff, for whatever reason, worked really well. And with my family back home, like I watch a lot of videos, and I made them chocolate maple bacon, and it really soared high. So, yeah.
Thank you, Danny. I wanted to add a comment and a question. I read about food as diplomacy, it's gastro-diplomacy apparently. And my question is, I love what you said about the soup kitchen. I mean, a lot of people don't have access to travel and stuff like that. They don't have the means to do so. So my question is, do you think that gastro-diplomacy or food diplomacy is a form of education in itself?
Absolutely. It's a form of soft power, which Joseph Nye shows as a non-militaristic and like friendlier way of promoting one's own culture and creating these new bounds. What it really did, you're completely right. They've never experienced the sensation of travel. Like a lot of Americans don't even have passports, so for them to experience this culture from a hand that actually knows what's going on with it, instead of the typical day-to-day fatty fast food and that kind of cuisine, they were elated. They were excited. So it really it serves as a good form of diplomacy.
I would like to add on. What about the other side, like the distortion for people that can't travel who eat Chinese food in wherever they are in Europe or Russia? It definitely doesn't resemble Chinese food at all.
It doesn't, but it might inspire to learn more about the culture, which could be its own means of diplomacy. Like, of course, you can't get the premier ingredients that you could get in Asia to make the like complete right cuisine. But if you're trying something like, oh, I really like Chinese food, maybe one day in your life you say, I should go to China for real Chinese food. And if that doesn't serve well, then it could serve as propaganda of what your stereotype of the food is.
Yeah, this might be like a slight long shot, but were you able to get any like research on like how much like a corporation like McDonald's, for example, will put into research for like international trends, because you know how they have like the new baguette and like specific things. And I read somewhere that they actually put like so much money into like the research for like their smell, for example. Like I refuse to eat McDonald's, but still like if I smell it, it still like somehow smells good to me. I think most people still think it smells really good, which is something that they don't do a lot of research for.
During my workshop, you're going to see how the alchemy of food and food manipulation can take place. And so this can go into sensory manipulation is what I like to view it as. You can have deprivation, you can have inhibitors that make certain foods taste a little bit better. This is my scientist side coming out, y'all. I'm sorry. But no, there is a big science behind gastro stuff. So I don't know figures and numbers and all of that, but cool. Thank y'all. So workshop. Food?
Can I ask you one question?
Absolutely.
What's that? Buku? What's the dessert?
Buku?
Yeah.
Global street food, so all over.
No, the dessert food from
Oh, that was my creation. That was Finnish and Southern cuisine. Yeah, it was awful looking, like real bad.